you have been quoted as saying that the Tinubu government is being run by a cabal. Do you know who the members of that cabal are? Can you identify them? And then, we're also told that you have complained about the fight against corruption by the Tinubu administration. Well, how does that compare to what happened under the government that you served, the Buhari administration? And the general question about how President Tinubu's policies have impacted on the lives of Nigerians. If you could just take the issues one by one by way of introduction.
Well, I talked about the CABAL infrastructure in the Nigerian presidency and had also confirmed that, President Bola Tinubu's government is not insulated from the influence of the cabal. I made references to incidences which are apparent impact of the cabal in our presidency. And I emphasize that the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, which I serve, there was a cabal. But the cabal in the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, the infrastructure being the same, but those who occupied it were not too informed people. They were not quite experienced. But the occupants of the cabal infrastructure around the President Bola Tinubu, like I said in other interviews, are quite experienced people in government. They've also been in politics. They are educated, so they are more sophisticated than what we were dealing with. And I said, well, how could you explain what happened during the nomination of the ministers, where a letter was sent by the president, the National Assembly, nominating Nigerians who were going to be members of his cabinet, and suddenly some of the nominees, while on their way to the National Assembly, were told they have been changed. Some even didn't know until when they got to the National Assembly. And shortly after that, we had altercations in Kano, where the national chairman of the party was questioning who nominated the nominee. Of course, the question has not been answered. Who nominated the nominee? So these are some of the things that are happening. And if you look at how the president's responses to some of the very critical issues that borders on the state of the nation, the hardship, the suffering, the rising cost of living and inflation, and the president's reaction is completely a disconnect from the reality we are dealing with. So, of course, I still maintain that the infrastructure of the cabal is still effective and is also influencing most of the things that we see happening in government.
All right. No, before you go, comrade, now I need some clarification. You say on one hand that the cabal that you see around President Tinubu is educated, is sophisticated, the cabal knows how to use power. I would have loved you to name names to say these are the people involved in this cabal. And then at the same time, you say they are dangerous. How can somebody being educated, being powerful, be dangerous? Are you saying you prefer the Buhari cabal, the people you described as morons and imbeciles, more or less, that they had a cabinet of stupid people who did not know what to do with power? So there's some confusion here. You say people are educated, you say they are dangerous. You say people are morons, you say they were a better cabal. We're dealing with, some kind of relativity here. If you could just clarify that. So you prefer the Buhari cabal of morons and imbeciles to the sophisticated and educated people. Is that what you are saying?
Well, the choice of your words are your words, but I maintain those ones that are mine. Especially when I say they are dangerous. They're dangerous because they pursue their selfish interests against the interests of their principal. And that, of course, is at cross purpose with the intention of whosoever appointed them. So that is dangerous. Because if they are doing things different from what would have ordinarily impacted positively on average Nigerians, of course, that is dangerous. So I think the use of the word dangerous there should be placed within the context of how I have used it. I have used uninformed. I didn't refer to them as morons. And being uninformed does not mean you're a moron. So I will not prefer any cabal to any, because the activities of a cabal is quite unhealthy to good governance. So none could be preferred. But of course, one could be, the impact of the other could be more on the well-being of citizens and governance.
All right.
More than the other.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Comrade Dalong. I hear you, and in fact, your statement says that President Buhari was like a stranger in his own government, and that's why this conversation around cabals is critical, because you're saying that the economic prosperity of the nation rests a lot on the decisions made by this government, or perhaps a government behind the government, and that's why we're asking that who are these people. But even further than that, I'd like to ask, what are some of the decisions by this administration that you believe are not from the president, but a machination of his cabal? Because if you make such strong accusations, you should be able to back it up. This is the soul of the nation we're talking about. We're looking at how to move forward. So what are some of these decisions you consider as being from the cabal to serve their interests? And how can we get out of this? Because we want to move this nation forward.
Yeah, from the context of the statement I made in the interview I had earlier, I made a very good reference to what transpired, especially during the August 1st to 10th protests, where we had the National Security Advisor addressing the National Council of State shortly after that, and raising a very serious fear on the nation by accusing the organizers of the protests as terrorists being sponsored by a foreign nation. And he alluded to the fact that they had the terrorists in custody just for us to see in court underage children who were malnourished staff and collapsing in court. So I made a reference to a very serious act of a cabal misleading the country, misleading elder statement, and even misleading the leader about what actually had happened. And it was just a protest of citizens who had right under the Constitution, protected under the law, to express their grievances about what was happening in the country. And just for some obvious interests and reasons, it was heavily misrepresented. And the country was embarrassed. Because when ultimately we saw the terrorists presented in court, they were just mere underage children.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, when we speak of cabals and there are different forms in different places and so forth, it always takes away from the power of the person who they are said to be surrounding. So if you speak of President Buhari and his cabal, then it almost makes it seem that well, you've already said about President Buhari that he didn't know what was going on. So my question to you is, you're saying that President Tinubu also has a cabal, although his own cabal looks different. Are you saying that President Bola Tinubu is not in control? Is President Tinubu in control?
President Tinubu is the commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But the infrastructure of the cabal, let me restate myself clearly, is the distortion of the course of things from its natural or original form.
So does that mean he's not in control?
It does not necessarily mean the president is not in control, but the president's directive could be distorted along the line when it comes to implementation. And that could take a long time for the president to discover, just like the issue of the ministerial nominee I made reference to. It was discovered lately, which embarrassed the government.
Okay, comrade, I mean, once upon a time you were a lecturer, you were a teacher. I hope I'm right in that regard. And you know that a cabal is not an abstraction. It's a group of persons who, in a particular situation, are trying to influence things for their own purpose. Intriguers, you can extend the adjectival connotations. Now, you were in the Buhari government. Who were those members of the cabal that you now in retrospect say, you know, they were uninformed people? I'm using your phrase now. And who are those sophisticated and intelligent people in Tinubu's government who are derailing the political purpose of the administration? Let's put faces to this cabal. Otherwise, we are talking in abstraction. Let us, so that we can go down and we can even take a decision here, whether I agree with you, whether some people you say are sophisticated and intelligent, whether I think that they are not as intelligent as you think, or whether the people you say are well uninformed, we may well call them some slack. Please give us some names.
Well, as to asking me to name some names, I have clearly given you my opinion about what I know as a cabal. And it is up to you to dig deeper as an investigative journalist to try to find out what actually are. But for you to ask me to name some names, I think I have the right and to reserve the names of those I, in my opinion, think a cabal.
But you allegists must prove. If you say some people around President Tinubu who think that they are sophisticated and intelligent and they are misleading the country, you must name them. So 1, 2, 3. These are the people I think are the problems, who are dangerous to this administration. Otherwise, your allegation cannot stand. Just name them. Are you afraid? Are you afraid to defend your own allegation?
As to who alleges must prove, well, that is, we are now going into a judicial situation, which I don't think we are here. We are only trying to look at, to address certain things that would have stifled the will of progress in governance. So I'm not afraid, but then naming names is also within my own right. And if I do not want to do it, I think you should take it that way. Okay. Except if you want to force it out of me, which is also going to be impossible.
Okay, all right. I understand you. Maybe, okay, so moving forward, let's talk about these policies that you say have been influenced by external forces. And going back to Vimbai's question, I do agree that what you're insinuating is that the president is not in full control of what's happening. There are some people whose voices might be louder or who have a greater influence. But let's talk about the policies that you describe as plunging Nigerians into, hardship. What's your take on this? Especially, some of the things that he's tried to ensure that he said that he had to do it for the posterity of Nigeria. He saved states from going into bankruptcy by his decision, even though difficult, but it is childbearing season and we should endure the pain until we begin to see the results. What do you think about this? What do you think are some of the policies he got wrong? How can we, because we're all about resolution, what can we do to move forward? It's not just about accusations.
Well, I faulted the president's pronouncement on the day of inauguration, basically because I expected that such very weighty statement could have come after a government would have constituted, wider and broader consultation would have taken place. Experts would have given their input as to the implication of such a decision. That didn't take place. And so the country was thrown into the situation we found ourselves. And I believe, too, that if the president had consulted, of course, experts would have mentioned to him the likelihood of how the marketers would have reacted. And they would have also pointed out the areas where the policy needed to have taken into consideration the impact on the general well-being of the citizens.
Comrade Dalong, what could he have done better? And how can we, now that's happened, this is the situation we find ourselves, how can we improve things? I think that's a good way to begin to make progress.
He could have done it better when he would have made a consultation before the policy is pronounced. And now that it has been pronounced and we are living with a lot of difficulties as a result of the policies. Of course, policies are made for human beings and made for Nigerians. he needs to review it, because yes, if it had impacted negatively, it needs to be reviewed and the hardship considered. Even though the president has done so well, from what I hear every day about the palliatives, a lot of money given to the states, even though that it wasn't made public, but government has been saying it, and at some points have been asking us to hold the governors accountable. But you see, when governance is shrouded in a lot of secrecy, we have to deal with this situation. It could be true that the president has done that much, but where is the impact? There's a serious disconnect. So there is a need for transparency in terms of the management of the palliative regime put in place to address the hardship, because, I mean, there seems to be more action without motion.
That is, it's a very valid point you've made. Now, as we round up, of course, one of the items on our agenda for our conversation today is around your analysis of the developments that are happening in the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. Of course, we know that the minister has embarked on a lot of infrastructure projects, and the Senate President Godswill Akpabio has even said that Abuja has started looking like London. Are you feeling like you're in London? What's your assessment of the developments taking place in Abuja?
Well, I'm feeling like in my village in Sabongida. If the Senate President is feeling like in London, it could be maybe the London of his own immediate environment. But I do know as a fact that in Abuja, well, we have a construction work going on, and and then in the morning we witness a lot of traffic jams if you want to move, and that I see happening. But I think the misrepresentation of progress and limiting it to the elite alone or privileged class is unfair. In Abuja, I know there is no water. Most people support themselves with private initiative through boreholes. The school system here in Abuja, the public schools, is not different from any part of Nigeria. The healthcare delivery system here is, of course, like a transit camp. You just go in and graduate into the mob. So these are the services that affects common people directly, not road construction. How many poor Nigerians have vehicles? So we cannot be emphasizing dualization or road construction as development. To me, it doesn't. Development should be what touches the general well-being of the people.
Well, thank you very much.
Dr. Abati, you're asking Solomon Dalon to give you names of cabal. No, he's not going to do that. No. Even you yourself, you know those cabals. So you should know that you are not expecting Solomon Dalon to give you names. He knows what he's saying. Yeah, there's cabal. They are sophisticated, educated cabals, which are holding this country ransom, because reality is far from them. They don't want good thing. Yes, it doesn't concern them. The day this country get better, anybody try to make this country work get better, so those people are going to lose their jobs. So they're not going to fold hands, allow somebody to come and change the country, because the more money they make in this corrupt way is that's what they need. If the country gets better, they're not going to make more money. You get what I'm saying? So anyways, please do me a favor now, like this video, subscribe to this YouTube channel now, please. I'll be your guy. Run out for me now.